Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from the crap that's holding you back so you can claim the life you're meant to live. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're diving into the next topic of our Untethered Practices series, meditation and journaling. Let's dive in. Before we officially dive into today's episode, I want to share something really exciting with you. The next cohort of my coaching program is going to be opening up in mid-May. This next iteration of my coaching program is called Made for More. And I am calling to you if you are someone who knows that there is something more out there in the world for you, whether it's your next job, whether it's just something more out of life, whether it's a complete change of career, or maybe it's something more financially or abundantly out of your business. There is just something more. This program is for you. What we're going to do in this program is to dive in over 12 weeks into who you really are, what you really care about, truly understand exactly what it is you came to the world to do so that you can turn around and apply that in a way that serves the world and a way that allows you to open up financially to even more abundance potentially than you already have. And that abundance can be financial, it can be love, it can be connection, it can be all things, because truly all of these things are connected. And you beautiful, magical unicorn of a human, were truly made for more. And I can see that and I can feel that. And I know that for you, if you're somebody who listens to this podcast, you know that it's true for you. You're being called to contribution. You're being called to unleash your magic, your glittery, beautiful magic into the world. And so if you're holding on to it in any way, shape, or form, if you can feel that for yourself, this might be the right timing for you. I might be the right coach for you. So what you can do is go to jenliss.com/made for more. That will take you to a form where you can answer a couple of questions, and it'll help me to understand what it is that you might be looking for. And it might even help you understand a little bit about what you might be looking for. So whether you end up submitting it or not, maybe go to jenliss.com/made for more and answer those questions. Answer those questions for yourself as a gift. And if you're curious to have a quick one-on-one call with me where I will share some really good coaching takeaways for you, totally free, and we can talk about whether this might be a program for you, go and fill out that form. And I look forward to seeing it. All right, now let's dig in to meditation and journaling. Let's go. Hi, friends, it's Jen. I hope you've been enjoying this Untethered Practices series. So what we've been doing is going through all of these different practices that can help you to get outside of the flurry of your mind, maybe even calm the flurry of your mind, and make decisions that will help you move forward on the things that you really want to do, or to get quiet with yourself so that you can actually listen and hear what are the things that I actually want. So we are just in this busy world. Our minds are busy, and it can help to use some of these practices, whatever practices are best for you. And I'm intrigued with all of these things, and myself have tried many of these things. I gravitate more to some than others. And I think everyone does. You know, for some people, talk therapy is actually perfect. That is exactly what they need. And it's so perfect. For other people, they do therapy and coaching. Some people do therapy, coaching, and tapping and breathwork. And some people just do breathwork. Like, whatever it is that is supportive to you, that's what this series is about, is simply introducing you to some new ideas, potentially, or even just reminding ourselves that these things exist. For example, tapping with Sherry Lukey on Tuesday that we talked about. I forget about tapping, but it is incredibly supportive. I totally forget about it, but it can be so helpful. I actually got activated just this past weekend, something that somebody said that I was like, oh, it's fine. That doesn't bother me at all. But then 30 minutes later, I'm not kidding you, my mind and my nervous system started going off the rails. And I went into the bathroom and I was like, thank you, Sherry. And I tapped on my, at the top of my head, my forehead, my eyebrow, below the eye, temple, all of those locations that she talked about that you could go to her YouTube and watch videos. And I will say somebody reached out to me, a listener of this podcast reached out to me and there is an app called the Tapping Solution that she says she's used for a few years and her kids use it too. So it's really supportive for children. It's such an easy thing that people can do, tapping. And like Sherry said, there's a lot of scientific research that proves that it can be incredibly effective in calming the nervous system and calming down, getting us out of our limbic system, helping it to relax. So give that a shot if it's something that you haven't tried yet. It's super easy and really interesting to experience. I mean, I myself, like I said, I used it this weekend and it was incredibly, incredibly supportive. So give it a try. And thank you, Katie, for sharing that app that you use and how supportive it has been. So today we're not talking about tapping, although we just talked about tapping. We're talking about meditation and journaling. And I lumped these two together, not because they're the same at all, but I think they go hand in hand in a really interesting way. And with all of the practices that we've talked about to this point, I think it adds up to these two kind of coming together. Now, meditation, of course, we've all heard of meditation. Most people have probably attempted to meditate at some point. Maybe you, the listener, are an incredible meditator. Maybe it's something that you do every single day, twice a day. Maybe you have a practice of meditation that is incredible, and that's amazing. Many other people have tried it and been like, that's boring. That sucks. I don't like it. And you know what? That's okay too, because there's lots of other practices that can support you and your mental health and support you in moving forward on whatever the thing is that you want to do. You don't have to meditate. However, there's a lot of research and a lot of information out there about how meditation can be incredibly supportive for our brains. And there's lots of reasons for that. And I'm going to share a few. So I'm not a neuroscientist. I only know as much as I know. I'm fascinated by this stuff. And part of that is because when I learn about a thing, like, I need to know why. Like, I'm not just going to pray because you told me to pray. Like, yes, I did that as a kid, but even while I'm praying, I'm questioning why. Why am I praying? Why am I doing this? Why are you having me do this? I've always been a why. I am a toddler at heart and mind. And so I have lots of questions. And so I've asked a lot of questions. And so I just want to share some of what I know, and you might know way more than I know. And so you're welcome to share with me. I love when people after these episodes have written me some information that they have, because we all know varying levels of this stuff. And my breathwork mentor, I've been so blessed that the mentor that I got paired with in this program that I'm in, she is a neuroscientist. So we've been able to ask her all the questions about, okay, why does this work? Why is it that, when we breathe, when we do breath work, when we come into a meditative state, what exactly is it doing? And so she has been able to provide some of that information, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you today. So what is meditation? Meditation is simply getting quiet in our mind, creating space in our mind so that we can observe our thoughts, even release our thoughts, and simply sit in quiet. In the quiet of ourselves, in the quiet of our mind, in the quiet of our bodies. And why is that something that is important? Well, I will share a little bit why that is important. But first, we'll talk about how to do it. How do you meditate? There's many different ways to meditate. There are guided meditations. There are semi-guided meditations. There are meditations where you don't have any guidance at all. You're simply sitting in quiet by yourself, or maybe you meditate by listening to a mantra over and over and over and just repeating the same mantra. I myself, I've loved, I don't know if you've heard of Deepak Chopra. Many people have. He's big in the meditation world. He has, it's totally free. I'm a huge fan. I've gone through it 4 or 5 times. The 21 Days of Abundance meditation. You can look it up in any app. Deepak Chopra, DeepakChopra, 21 Days of Abundance meditation series. It's beautiful. So what he has you do, he gives you a little bit of info, which I think is really supportive, especially if you're new to meditation. And it's really focused on abundance and inviting abundance into your life, which a lot of us can benefit from. And then he gives you a mantra, and you say this mantra in your mind. You repeat it anytime that you feel the messy, fuzzy thoughts appearing in your brain. You repeat this over and over and over. And what that does is it creates space in your mind between those thoughts that you're having. So you're basically inserting that mantra in between, which creates a little bit of space in your brain. So a mantra can be something that you use in your meditation practice that can be incredibly supportive. Other kinds of there's transcendental meditation. There's the meditation where you do the Om. I've tried it all. I've tried it all. Personally, I love a mildly guided meditation. And some meditations invite visualization where you see visuals. So like yourself floating on a river. Or I love when I do breath work, when I guide somebody through breath work, I sometimes have them place their thoughts on leaves and have those thoughts floating down the river. That's a meditative practice to support you in releasing the thoughts out of your brain. So sometimes people will combine visualization with the meditation and creating that space for yourself in your mind between your thoughts, allowing yourself to focus on one thought at a time instead of that jumbly garbly-gook that's happening in your mind at all times. Creating some space between the thoughts. That's really what meditation is doing for us, because we have so much going on in our brains at any given time. So I would love to hear if you've tried meditation and what your thoughts are on meditation. Is it something that for you has been supportive? Do you like the guided kinds of meditations? There's a lot of apps out there. So I was previously at a company where I worked full time, and they had Headspace as an app. My husband has an app that his company provides. Many companies, I used to be an employee experience, they're providing more of that stuff because companies themselves recognize that our mental health is a priority, and that meditation is one of those ways that can be really supportive to it. Now, why, from a neuroscience, from a brain standpoint, is this something that is really important? I think something that's interesting, and I had a guest on the podcast a long time ago. Her name was Heb on the web. She's fantastic. If you want to go back to that episode, I highly recommend it. We talked about this. We talked about how when we were young, many of us who are, Gen X, millennials, and beyond, we were raised with the idea that your brain is your brain and it is capable of certain things, and that is it. Like, some people are smart, some people are not, and that is exactly how it is. Either you're an A student or you're a C student, or sorry if you're that F student. I grew up in a small school, and we definitely were categorized from a very young age at what our capabilities, like neurologically, were. And it's just not true. The science now says neuroplasticity is a thing. Throughout a human being's life, it is possible for their brain to undergo positive structural changes. This is just a fact. And meditation studies have also given us a little sneak peek into what actually happens as we practice. With regular practice, the amygdala in the brain, which is linked with processing sadness, anxiety, and negative emotions, actually shrinks in size when we meditate. It shrinks. It changes our brain. The part that tends to experience anxiety becomes physically less dense. And what becomes more dense when we meditate, there are scans of people's brains that prove this. As we meditate, the density of the regions related to self-awareness, concentration, memory, and by golly, the biggest thing in the world that is so transformative to your life, compassion. Compassion. So you link self-awareness, you link compassion together. When you strengthen those two things, freaking game changer. Game changer. So practices like breathwork, practices like even tapping, meditation, journaling, all of these things increase the density of that region of your brain that can help you be more self-aware and compassionate to yourself and others. I'm going to do a whole episode about compassion. I can't get too deep into it today. There's too much to talk about with meditation, but it will change your life. Having compassion for yourself allows you to have compassion for others. And it's freaking transformative. It's so transformative. Now let's talk about the brain and what we know about the brain and what so many recent scientific studies are talking about. And I will say a lot of this comes from a Harvard scientist, Arthur Brooks. He's fantastic. If you are curious about all of this stuff, he studies happiness and he studies the brain. And these are the things that he talks about. And they're things that we've talked about in previous episodes as well, but we're just bringing it together in the idea of meditation and also journaling. I'll get to that and why it matters here in just a second. So the two parts of the brain are the limbic system and the neocortex. Now, the neocortex, I love how Arthur Brooks explains this. It is the wrinkly part of your brain, and it's wrinkled up because it's huge. It's like a meter sheet that has all been bunched up inside your brain. Isn't that fascinating? So that is sitting on top of the other parts of your brain. Now, the neocortex is the most modern part of our brain. It has evolved over time. The oldest part of our brain is our limbic system. The problem in our society is that most people are running off their limbic system. And why that is a problem is because our limbic system is old. It's a freaking dinosaur. And what it does is it protects us from dinosaurs, from tigers, from things that are out there in the world. It is the thing that controls our fear. It controls our desires. It sends signals. That's what the limbic system does. It keeps us safe. It keeps us comfortable. It keeps us nice and cozy. That is its job. That is its sole job. It takes signals that come from our eyeballs, that come from our nervous system, that come from our sensors that are throughout our body, and it turns them into emotions, cravings, desires, etc. Those are all just signals. Those signals go to our amygdala. Our amygdala helps us to feel fear so that we don't die from a tiger attack, right? We all know this. We've all heard this, but it's so important to understand how much we are operating off of our limbic system because it responds fast, and it's supposed to respond fast because if there's a tiger, we need to respond fast. What responds slower is that neocortex, and the prefrontal cortex in particular, which is part of this section of our brain. It's the most modern, but it is slower than the limbic system. So why does this matter? Because if you're just operating off the limbic system, you're not allowing that kind of slower, more methodical, more thoughtful part of your brain, this very modern part of your brain, some space, some time to catch up and make an adult decision. You're allowing that fast part to control everything. Okay, so there's our little science lesson. Why does this matter with meditation. Meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex. It's every time you meditate, it is like pumping some iron, lifting some weights, strengthening, making that part of your brain stronger, maybe even a little bit quicker. You're more aware. You've created some space between the limbic system and that system where you get to make a decision within that space because you're practicing strengthening and spending time in that prefrontal cortex. Because what we talked about with the density of the brain, that's the part that you're strengthening and making more dense. Your limbic system, it's good. It has been doing its thing for millions of years. It is good. You do not need to spend any more time strengthening your limbic system. It knows what the F to do. Your prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, it's a bowl full of jelly. If you're not meditating or taking on any of these practices that strengthen your prefrontal cortex, it's so stinking important. Because if you're being managed by your limbic system, you are running on impulses and emotions and desires and cravings. And as amazing as that can feel sometimes, it gets us absolutely nowhere. It's like, as Arthur Brooks describes it, it's like eating a bowl of sugar for breakfast and then expecting yourself to be able to accomplish a lot of things when you just ate a whole bowl of hot tamales for breakfast. It's going to be a little bit hard to run a marathon or something if you haven't trained and all you've been doing is eating sugar for breakfast, right? We've got to train this other part of our brain. And what's so interesting, like, I think we can all agree that a lot of the world, a lot of us, especially as we have just embraced our modern science, we've really fallen away from religion. And I mean, that's totally okay. I think it's because, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I myself have done a lot of questioning, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Well, guess what? Neuroscience has told us why we're doing this because all religion is neuroscience. All religion is neuroscience. What praying is helping us to do, what getting quiet is helping us to do, what rituals that bring us into strengthening the neocortex of our brain. What Buddhists do is to simply watch and observe your thoughts. Guess what all of those things are doing? They're strengthening your neocortex and pulling you out of that instant response of your limbic system. And that's called metacognition. So metacognition is observing your thoughts. And as you observe your thoughts, then your feelings are not controlling your behavior. This is so stinking powerful. Like, I almost think of it like if we're just acting off of our limbic system, it's like we're allowing these fast moving zombies to just like take over our lives. And it's like, why? Why are we allowing this to happen? We've got to pick up practices. So it could be religion for you. It could be prayer. It could be, sitting in quiet every morning and expressing gratitude. It could be going into deep meditation, starting to take up a practice of meditation, doing that Deepak Chopra 21 Days of Abundance that I mentioned. I have a friend who loves transcendental meditation. You could take up that practice. Please do some kind of practice that helps you to strengthen your prefrontal cortex. Because if it's a bowl full of jelly, it needs to be a little bit more dense. It's going to improve your life in so many ways. And there's just been more and more studies. There was one that I think it was somewhere in Great Britain where they looked at meditation practitioners and they looked at the brains of these meditators. They were structurally different from those of non-meditators. So meditation is incredibly powerful, but again, it doesn't have to be meditation. Okay, now let's talk about why journaling matters. Why journaling really matters is because journaling is like actively taking the impulses and the things that are happening from that limbic system, those instant thoughts and feelings and emotions and writing them down. So you're taking all of these signals that are happening from that limbic system, that old thing that we're all running off of all the time, and you're writing those things down. It doesn't even matter when you journal if you're like making sense. It's just writing those things down. And what does that do? It creates space. And it's basically like downloading manually those things into that prefrontal cortex. So you are giving space for your brain, and then you are strengthening by writing it down, the things that are coming from your limbic system. You're creating space for you to make better decisions. And then you're also strengthening the prefrontal cortex. You're like downloading it manually into that part of your brain. Those are words straight from Arthur Brooks. He's just so great at talking about this. I highly recommend checking out some of his talks that he has done. So meditate or pray and then write it down. Meditate and then pray and then write it down. Create some space, write it down. That is actively moving those things out of the reactive part of your brain and into the part of your brain that most human, most modern part of your brain that could make even better decisions for yourself and help you to move forward on the things that you really want to. Because if you're operating from the limbic system, you ain't moving anywhere. It's like you're like a cartoon character where the legs are just spinning in place and you're not moving. You're not getting anywhere. Because the limbic system doesn't actually want you to like move out of your comfort zone at all. It wants you to stay. So all of those impulses are just going to keep you totally in place. That's what they're meant to do. So you need to activate that other part of your brain that's like, oh no, I don't want to react that way. Thank you, limbic system. I want to do this instead. And so meditation and journaling are two things that are so supportive together, which is why I wanted to talk about it, because when you do it together, and breathwork, the way that I teach breathwork is meditative breathwork. So it takes you into a meditative state. And it's why at the end of every session, I invite the breather. I'm not so sure how I feel about that word, but invite the breather to write down some of the things that came up. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It could just be like, had great breath today, felt yummy. Like it does not matter what you write down. It's simply allowing yourself to process the emotions and the experiences that you felt in that session. And it is so powerful just to get those things out of the limbic system and into that prefrontal cortex. So I hope this is supportive and understanding. I know it's a little bit like science lesson, but I find that to be like really helpful. There is this piece of me that is like, help me understand. My structured mind needs to understand, because I think that's the society that we live in, is that we want to understand all the things. We want to understand the why. And we have so much science that has helped us to question the why of things. But all of the latest scientific research is pointing back to these old practices and what they have been doing for humans throughout the millennia. And I mean, I think we can all admit that we've got a mental health problem. We have a crisis on our hands, and, medication, awesome. Like whatever it is that is supporting you and helpful to you, so awesome. At the same time, we're really beginning to understand the importance of some of these other practices and why we did them, why we had these rituals, why we spent time doing these things every single day, praying every single day, or meditating every single day, or journaling every single day, or doing all three of those things. And so many cultures have been doing them for so long. And this is why. This is why our brains need it. Otherwise, you've just got that gelatinous sludge happening up at the front of your brain. Your limbic system, just to recap, does not need any more reps. It's good. It's good. Give those reps via meditation or some other practice that can support your prefrontal cortex. Invitation to go do your own research on this. And I would love to have a conversation. I love having conversations about this. If you know of an amazing neuroscientist who can come on and share some about this, I would love that as well. So total invitation to do so. Would love it. We've got a couple more episodes coming up on these untethered practices. I'm so excited to welcome back to the podcast next week, Tarla, who is going to come and talk about hypnotherapy. So super fun one that I also have participated in. Looking forward to you hearing that episode. So I hope you gained some wisdom out of this episode as far as how meditation can support you, how journaling can be a supportive practice that you participate in. If you want to hear more about either of these things, reach out to me. You can reach out on social media at untetheredjen. You can send me an email at hello@jenlist.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and you just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye.